Welcome again to Roots of Contemplation and Ignatius and his imaginative contemplations of the Bible. And I thought I would go back to the passage that I always used to start with, which is Matthew's account of the feeding of the 5,000, which is quite a compact telling of the story. And I think its background is interesting. I know this is sort of logical analytical, and we will get on to the creative, intuitive, meeting God in imagination in a bit, but I just need to set the scene. It's just after the death, the beheading of John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin, and there was great overlap between Jesus and John. Their message was very similar. And it must have affected Jesus deeply. And so he is really wanting some time out, time away with his disciples, to be supported by them, no doubt. Sets off on the boat, but crowds of people realise where they're off to, and when they land, there are crowds, and Jesus responds to them and heals the sick. I suspect preached to them, and then they realise they're away from everywhere, there's no food, and Jesus says, well, you give them something to eat. Oh, we've only got a few loaves of bread and fish. And Jesus enables them to be involved in the feeding, and there are even 12 baskets. There's some left for the disciples at the end. So that sets the scene. But what I would like you to be able to do, and once I've read the passage a couple of times, I'll suggest you pause the video and just spend some time seeing if you can get in touch with anything in the passage. What you're looking for is just some clue as to where you're to get into the passage. Now, you may have a strong sense, oh yes, I want to be one of the disciples, or I sense I'm Jesus seeing this, or one of the crowd, or a bystander. You may be a drone, no, not a drone really. What are those? Yeah, they are drones, I don't know, but seeing it from above. If, like me, and I think a lot of men are pretty sort of left brain, find it difficult to connect. I remember doing this once, and I just thought, I don't know where I am. I've got no sense. And I felt a sort of slight swaying. I got tinnitus or something. Not tinnitus, labyrinthitis or something. But no, it was the sense that I was in the boat. And I was in the boat with Jesus and the disciples, observing things. That was my way in. So you're just looking for any little hint as to your way into the passage, to imagine yourself. And then I think to reflect on that experience and experience as much as you can. You're encouraged by Ignatius to, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you smell? All the senses. How do you connect? I remember doing this in a group, and a lady who hadn't been able to smell for a long time lost her sense of smell, but she could smell the fish in her imagination, and that was lovely. So see how you get in and trust your imagination. I think we're very suspicious of our imagination, but just trust that God will use your imagination and will speak to you through it. So Lord, speak to us now in our imagination through this passage. For your name's sake. Amen. After Jesus heard about the death of John the Baptist, he crossed Lake Galilee to go to some place where he could be alone. But the crowds found out and followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus got out of the boat, he saw large crowds. He felt sorry for them and healed everyone who was sick. That evening, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "This place is like a desert, and it is already late. Let the crowds leave so that they can go to the villages and buy some food." Jesus replied, "They don't have to leave. Why don't you give them something to eat?" But they said, "We have only 5 small loaves of bread and 2 fish." Jesus asked his disciples to bring the food to him, and he told the crowd to sit down on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He looked up towards heaven and blessed the food. Then he broke the bread and handed it to his disciples, and they gave it to the people. After everyone had eaten all they wanted, Jesus' disciples picked up 12 large baskets of leftovers. There were about 5,000 men who ate, not counting the women and the children. Just take some time to see perhaps what words or images or phrases might be away. What are you sensing? How is God meeting you in your imagination? As you explore that, you might listen or you might not listen, but I'm going to read the passage again. After Jesus heard about John, he crossed Lake Galilee to go to some place where he could be alone. But the crowds found out and followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus got out of the boat, they saw the large crowds. He felt sorry for them and healed everyone who was sick. That evening, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "This place is like a desert, and it is already late. Let the crowds leave so that they can go to the villages and buy some food." Jesus replied, "They don't have to leave. Why don't you give them something to eat?" But they said, "We have only 5 small loaves of bread and 2 fish." Jesus asked the disciples to bring the food to him. He told the crowd to sit down on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He looked up to heaven and blessed the food. Then he broke the bread and handed it to his disciples, and they gave it to the people. After everyone had eaten all they wanted, Jesus' disciples picked up 12 large baskets of leftovers. There were about 5,000 men who ate, not counting the women and the children. So I would pause the video now if you can and just spend some time in stillness if you can. Find a place of stillness and just see what God might have for you. So pause now. Great, welcome back. It'd be lovely to hear what happened for you. But, do email me and connect me in that way. But obviously we can't do this live. So let me just sort of help you perhaps with your experience. I think at some point I would reflect back. I began to say this earlier and then went off on a different thread. But if you can reflect back over the experience in your imagination or whatever happened for you, look out for where you are most aware of God. And yes, go with that awareness where was I most aware of God, rather than what was God saying, which just got to get back to the sort of logical analytical approach, to stay with that sense of where God was and reflect on what God might be saying to you through that. What is he revealing about your nature, your character? There was a lady who fought through the crowd to be there at the centre with Jesus. And I think others could see that's how she was in life, fighting through, trampling on people occasionally to get what she wanted. So you learn about yourself, you learn about God, you learn about what God might be saying to you. And if you like this way, I think the best thing I can suggest, and I'll put a link to Pray As You Go, which comes from British Jesuits, the Society of Jesus that Ignatius started, and their little reflections, usually 12, 13 minutes, delightful. They have music, they have a Bible reading, and often an encouragement to imagine ourselves in the Bible reading and meet God in imagination. And try it. I mean, if you find it easy, have a go. If you find it difficult, still have a go, because you can learn to connect with God in different ways, in deeper ways. I hope you find that helpful. Amen.